The White House has urged Volodymyr Zelensky to tone down criticism and sign that deal after the Ukrainian president accused Donald Trump of believing Russian fake news over Ukraine's exclusion from peace talks. White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz told Fox News that Ukraine should finalize a critical minerals deal with Washington to secure further aid. Meanwhile, the U.S. has refused to co-sponsor a UN resolution marking 3 years since Russia's invasion, which supports Ukraine's territorial integrity. This reflects a growing divide between Zelensky and Trump, whose administration is pursuing a rapid end to the war through negotiations that exclude Kyiv. The rift poses a major challenge for Ukraine, which has relied on U.S. military aid. A UK-led peacekeeping plan proposes deploying 30,000 British and French troops to Ukraine's key infrastructure, backed by U.S. air support. However, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov rejected the plan as a direct threat to Russia. The UN resolution, backed by over 50 countries, condemns Russian aggression. Historically, the U.S. has co-sponsored such measures, but its current stance remains unclear. Diplomats warn that without U.S. support, global backing for Ukraine may weaken. The Kremlin has expressed agreement with Trump, emphasizing negotiations over continued conflict. Trump's scathing remarks about Zelensky, calling him a dictator without elections, have emboldened Moscow. Meanwhile, allies like the UK reaffirm support for Ukraine, with Sir Keir Starmer likening Zelensky to Winston Churchill in a show of solidarity.
He campaigned for president, and he wants it to end in a way that's fair. He wants it to end in a way that's sustainable and enduring, not that leads to another conflict in 2 to 3 years. That's not going to be easy to achieve, but he's the only one in the world that can begin that process. Donald Trump is the only leader in the world that could initiate that process, and today was the first step in that process. I came away today convinced that they are willing to begin to engage in a serious process to determine how and how quickly and through what mechanism can an end be brought to this war. Whether we can ultimately reach that outcome will obviously depend on every side in this conflict's willingness to agree to certain things. So I think it's important to have this meeting because we haven't really had much engagement with the Russians for almost 3 years. And so I would say to you that in order to bring an end to any conflict, there has to be concessions made by all sides. We're not going to predetermine what those are. We're certainly not going to negotiate this today or in a press conference for that matter. But, and there are other parties that have sanctions. The European Union is going to have to be at the table at some point because they have sanctions as well that have been imposed. So, but I guess the point here is the goal is, and we agreed on what the goal is to bring an end to this conflict in a way that's fair, enduring, sustainable, and acceptable to all parties involved. What that looks like, well, that's what the ongoing engagement is going to be all about.
Lavrov from rescinding sanctions.